muscle is created in the kitchen, not at the gym.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Anita Wanka. I'm here with my personal nutrition coach, Jorge Tapias, or JT. JT has helped me in so many ways, not only improve my health, but he's helped me with my mindset. He's helped me with the way I approach sleep. And this has translated into the way I help my patients who are trying to lose weight. So I'm so excited to have JT here with us. JT, could you start by sharing with us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the fitness and nutrition industry?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I am a former professional soccer player. My career ended at the age of 24. That was a very short career. And so came back to the States. I was playing in Mexico when my career ended. Came back to the States, started a small gym in probably one of the most gym saturated areas in the world, 30 gyms in a 5-mile radius. And so as you can imagine, lots and lots of competition. And I knew early on, I wanted to do two things out of the gate. Number one, I wanted to bring a great product to the marketplace. I knew that was going to come in the form of results and quick results. And number two, I needed to differentiate myself from the competition. And so we went juxtaposed to what most gyms do, which is, hey, you come in, you need to lose weight. People put you on a program, a treadmill on the floor. We were sitting with people and we were asking them specific questions on lifestyle. And so we started with lifestyle modifications and really hyper focusing on the nutrition aspect. I'm a counselor by trade. I have a master's degree in eating disorders and substance abuse. And so I come from the world of addiction. That's what the focus was when I was going through school. Interestingly enough, it was all about drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, things of that nature. No one was speaking about food, but I saw this huge need in this area. And so we went after it. We've been doing it now for 25 years. And yeah, it's been an incredible experience.
That is so fascinating. So what made you focus on food? Because you're right, the fitness industry tends to focus more on exercise. So what kind of made you think, okay, I need to incorporate diet into what I'm doing to help my clients?
Yeah, it really has to do with my personal story and testimony. Early on after my career, I don't know, Doc, how familiar you are with the story of athletes coming off of the, professional player realm where, you're kind of in a pedestal and, you're working as your dream, you're getting paid to do that. And then all of a sudden that dream ends and it becomes very traumatic and having to deal with, just reinventing yourself and creating a new identity for yourself. And so with those struggles came some strongholds and in the form of dependencies for me that were breaking me. And so I went through the whole, kind of spectrum of dependencies. And I realized how much of a stronghold that had on me. And for me, it was a combination of things, the eating well and the proper nutrition and the intentionally activating my physiology was the start of my recovery process. And so I understood that this worked cohesively. And I knew that many people were struggling with food and addiction to food. And it came as a series of events. It was almost like God was leading me in this direction. I remember particularly an anecdote where I was coming back. At this point, I owned the gym and I was coming back from work. It was a busy morning. I got in the elevator and I bumped into my janitor at my condo building that I would see all the time. And he was a normal guy. He was probably a good, 30 pounds overweight. And he saw me coming back with my gym clothes on. And he said, "Man, how much time do you spend at the gym?" And I said, "I only work out 3 days a week." And he said, "No way." He says, "How do you look like that?" And I must have looked fit to him. And I said, it's all nutrition. And he said, "Really?" And I gave him 3 tips. I literally just gave him 3 tips. This was from the first floor to the 3rd floor. And I walked away from the elevator. I didn't think much of it. I said, this is just another conversation like the ones I'm used to having and where people will ask me about fitness or nutrition and it goes in one ear and out the other. But interestingly enough, I saw the guy 45 days later and he looked radically different. I mean, he looked younger. His skin looked different. At that point, he had lost 27 pounds. And he was only 45 days in. And so I looked at him and I said, "Whoa." I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Did you start going to the gym?" He said, "No, I actually incorporated those 3 nutrition principles that you told me." And he says, "Man, I have mental clarity. I feel amazing." He says, "I started to, revisit my goals." I mean, the man looked like a completely different man. So as a byproduct of that, I'm like, man, I really think there's something here. We started to dig deeper and here we are, 25 years later.
That is so powerful. And I can attest to that. Like after working with you and I changed my diet, I definitely feel different. Like there's certain aches and pains that, you kind of get used to. but I noticed a big difference. So that is so powerful. But I'm also curious. I want to hear it again. And I think our audience wants to hear it. What are those 3 things that you told the janitor?
So I explained that very briefly that all transformation starts in the physical realm, and so the cognitive process of we think, we feel, and we act. And so the number one thing I said is you have to change your mindset around food. If you don't change your mindset around food and I give you the guidelines, you will follow all the guidelines, lose the weight, but then regain it because the chip never changed. So I said the first thing that needs to change is your mindset. When your mindset changes around food and you start to see food as a vehicle for you to perform better, then you connect to a very strong why, and that very strong why will push you through the difficult times and situations where people, places, and things are going to pressure you to do the thing that you don't want to do. Number 2, I said, you have to keep it very simple. I said, you don't have to worry about organic or eating this or eating that. I said, I just want you to focus on lean grass-fed proteins, green vegetables, and healthy fats. I said, forget about everything else for now. Not demonizing food groups. I simply said, just for now, forget about everything else. And I said, thirdly, I want you to walk a 5K at least 3 to 5 days a week. And it was those 3 things that radically changed everything for him. So yeah, those are your 3 secrets.
I love the simplicity of everything you're saying. It's so simple, but so powerful. But sometimes when things are so simple, it's easy to think it's not going to work. So even thinking back to my journey when I was working with you, I was like, as a physician, we think we know stuff, and yeah, you think you know stuff, but sometimes you don't really know stuff in a practical way. So I was doing we were talking about it, these crazy HIIT workouts, working night shift, eating the wrong thing at the wrong time, and trying to do too much. So when I was working with you, you simplify things, and I was so shocked and humbled at how powerful simplicity is and how also sustainable doing something simple is. When we do these complicated things like measuring this food, taking this supplement to lose this weight, this crazy workout at this time, then it's not realistic and it's not sustainable. So I love everything you're saying. I love everything you're saying. And going back to the tips that you gave him and also thinking about, the program that I went through, do you think this is practical for everyone? Should people maybe have a different plan depending on their body type? Or do you think these concepts can be applied for any person, any body type?
Yeah, these concepts are universal. The multidisciplinary approach that we have to nutrition, has been tested, under fire. In other words, for my first 15 years, I owned and operated, gym studios. And so I worked with everyone from the soccer mom to the busy, Fortune 500 CEO to, kids to the, elderly, and it works for everyone, regardless of how busy you are. The plan was created for busy people. It was meant to chuck complexity out because the brain doesn't like complexity. And as you said, humans, we have this tendency to think if it's harder, then I'm going to get there sooner, right? And I got to sweat and I got to hurt and I got to do all these things. And, what we realize is that we want to work smarter. We don't want to work harder. We also don't want to alert that part of our brain that I call the guard dog. And the guard dog is simply there, and it's scanning for difficult things or dangerous, what it perceives as danger. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the brain is a survival mechanism, right? It's there to keep you alive. And so when it perceives any kind of threat, it pushes back. So all these super fad diets that we have out there, the 800 calorie, 1,000 calorie, nutrition plans, these super hard workouts. Yeah, okay, you can do that for a while and that will yield some results. But the question is it sustainable? And I think, the answer to that is most of us know it isn't, right? And so we do it for a while and then we get exhausted, we get tired, and we're like, this is unsustainable. I can't do this. So our goal initially with the plan was to create a plan that you can do for the rest of your life and be able to recycle, because there's this different seasons of life, right? And so this is why we have phase 1, 2, and 3. And you can recycle through these phases depending on the season of life that you're going through. And then you get to practice the 80-20, which everyone loves that principle. 80% of the time you stick to the parameters, 20% of the time you give yourself some bandwidth to eat some of the foods and things you enjoy eating.
Yes, and it's so interesting that you talk about the 80-20 principle. I actually forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
And even talking about cycling through the different phases of the nutrition plan. I think for me, we kind of made things a little bit extra simple. It was phase 1 and then phase think phase 3. But the interesting thing for me, I actually ended up gaining a little bit of weight in the spring of, I think this year. But it was so incredible. Like, I just remembered, okay, what would JT tell me? Like, because like one of the things I love you'd always tell me, it's like looking at myself and like being really honest with myself. So I'll be like, okay, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I really eating enough protein? Am I really eating at the right time? So just making those small tweaks, like 9 pounds came off and everyone's like, what happened? Like, you lost weight again. I'm like, well, it like, it was shocking. Like, it was not that complicated to get the weight back off. And I'm like pretty much within like 3 or 4 pounds of our goal weight, which is, incredible that I've been able to sustain it this much. And it's so funny to see the looks on people's faces just because they were like, people like hate and they're like, we will see you. And then 2 years later, they're like, oh, okay, so what did you do? You still didn't gain the weight back. I'm like, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
It's been such an interesting journey. And I think one of the other powerful things for me that you always used to tell me, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. One thing is how you do everything. I think once I worked with you, I could see gains in other parts of my life. Where did you get this concept? How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah. So, I think when it comes to stacking habits, which is such a powerful concept, and stacking habits simply says that you want to find habits in your life that create a domino effect. And so, for example, how you do anything is how you do everything speaks about, the minute you engage your mind, you say, okay, enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to change my eating habits and my exercise habits, right? So the minute you do that and you start to embrace discipline and self-control in that particular area, then what happens is, because we as human beings, there's this interesting aspect of being human where we have a hard time with duplicity. And so what happens is the brain is looking for consistency. And so if you start to be consistent in one area, then that starts to translate into other areas. The way you show up on a daily basis in your work, in your marriage, in your parenting, in all these different aspects of life. And now you start to see discipline and self-control permeate throughout all areas of your life. And it becomes super empowering because now you realize, hey, I'm not just changing my eating habits because I want to look a certain way, but man, I am now performing differently. I'm showing up differently. I feel like I'm on purpose. And that driving force is really what creates momentum and what keeps people going for the long run.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that is so powerful. And I think even just accomplishing the goals in one area of your life, like say your nutrition goals or your weight loss goals, it gives you confidence. At least for me, it gave me more confidence to also go after other goals. Yeah, that is such a powerful concept. And it's incredible how improving one area of your life has such an impact on other areas of your life.
It shapes your brain. It's like, how do you, even in your day to day, I'm pretty sure that it's hard for you to disconnect as a scientist, right? You think like that. You filter everything through that framework of being a scientist at heart. And so people would say, well, even in your relationships, yeah, you probably look at relationships in that way. There's this sort of hierarchy of thought that takes over and you can't disconnect from that.
100%. But sometimes trying to turn it off so it's like not so intense.
Yeah, right.
One concept I wanted to ask you about is exercise. So this is a question a lot of patients or even people in general ask me. They're like, so what role does exercise play in weight loss if it's more about the nutrition? What are your thoughts on that?
Huge. Muscle is one of the biggest deposit sites for glycogen. And so our food turns into energy. It either goes to liver stores, muscle, or adipose tissue where it turns into fat. So the more muscle you have in your body, the more ability for that glycogen to be absorbed and utilized through the muscle versus it storing in your liver or storing as adipose tissue. So of course, resistance training plays a huge part there. And in essence, what I'm saying here is the more muscle you have, the more mishaps you can have in your diet. Right? This is why a person that is metabolically doing well can eat way more calories than a person that has, metabolic syndrome, for example. And so oftentimes you hear people say that person can eat whatever they want and they don't gain any weight. When we look at that person is just is partitioning fuel very differently. And that's why they can do that. And so we need to get healthy so that we can lose weight. People have it the other way around. They think that when they lose weight, they're going to get healthy. And so the way we do that, we have to focus on gut health. And so the gut, that second brain, basically is what helps a lot of these hormonal issues fire off the way they should, right? And so I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but you see in every corner now, you see hormone therapy, peptide this, hormone therapy that. And it's interesting because a lot of people come with all these dysfunctions, and the first thing they do is they put them on meds, not realizing that what they need to fix is actually their nutrition. Hence the reason now they're having all these hormonal issues. And so I hear it all the time. I hear the guys, I'm on testosterone replacement because my testosterone was, XYZ. And when you look at lifestyle, I mean, they're sedentary, they're 30, 40 pounds overweight. And now they're in their mid 30s, mid 40s. And of course, this has a lot to do with most of the time, I'm not saying every time, but most of the time it has to do with more with lifestyle than anything else. And so exercise is a fundamental piece of that. We need to have more muscle, especially as we age. The importance of that. When we're younger, we can get away with a lot. But, as we get older, we need to keep healthy muscle tissue, especially in the quads. If you are more muscular in your quads, this has been linked. There's many articles out there and statistics that say the more muscle you have in your quads, the longer you'll live. I think that also probably comes from all the falls that people take as they get older. And so having more muscle in the quads allows the legs to have a little bit more stability, especially as you're going upstairs, downstairs. All those movements are usually where older people end up getting injured. And we already know that if you're in your 60s or 70s and you break a hip, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, falls are one of the biggest challenges that older people have. And I could talk a lot about that, but you made 2 points that I really want to ask a few more questions about. So you mentioned we definitely want to have more muscle mass, which is it's more metabolically active and, can increase our metabolism. And if we have more muscle mass, we're able to have more fun days or eat more things that, might not be good for us in our diet. So if somebody's trying to lose weight, and this is a common situation with several of my patients. So they're trying to lose weight and then they're lifting weights. They're lifting 5 days a week, lifting heavy, and they're frustrated because the scale is not going down. So what would you say to somebody who's in that situation? Should they be doing things a little bit differently? Should they maybe be working with a different personal trainer to help them meet their goals? Should they stop lifting weights and focus on the weight loss, or should they be doing both at the same time and not worry about the number on the scale?
Yeah. So what I'm going to say goes completely counter to what most people hear about going to the gym. I'm an advocate for going to the gym. Obviously, I work out myself. I have owned and operated gyms. I believe in the concept of weightlifting. You just heard me say it's super important, but I believe it is the last piece of the puzzle. And I say that because, the number one challenge people have is not with going to the gym. For most people, the gym is fun. You get to check the box, you go there, you feel accomplished, you go out, and then what? Right. And so what's happening with a lot of people that are going to the gym 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week is that they're going to the gym, they're checking the box, but then they're storming, Cracker Barrel. And that's where the challenge is, right? Because, muscle is created in the kitchen, not at the gym. And so the number one thing is to dial nutrition in. The number two thing is to do the right kind of cardio, not the exhausting kind of cardio in the middle of the day. I live in Florida, so I see sometimes I'm driving down the road and I see someone at 1:00 in the afternoon with a jumpsuit on, sweating their life out. And I'm like, first of all, you're going to dehydrate. Secondly, you're doing very little to lose weight. That's not contributing very much to your weight loss. And so then the idea is nutrition, the right kind of cardio, which generally comes through steady state cardio. And then third is resistance training. And let's say if you're a couch potato, but you're looking to be a super potato and you've gone through the nutrition, you're doing the right kind of slow burn cardio. You've lost those first 20, 30 pounds and now you're transitioning into the gym. You have to go through a conditioning process. And if you don't do that conditioning process, well, then you're going to be super sore. You run the risk of injuring yourself. So, going through all the active stretching, making sure you know how to lunge, how to squat, that you know how to make sure you're protecting your back when you're leaning over, making sure that you're bringing your chest out when you're doing all those exercises, really focusing on time under tension versus just trying to get as many reps as you can and doing all those things. That's the thing that's going to bear the most fruit. And oftentimes that comes as a byproduct of actually hiring a coach. And I know a lot of people are like, I can't afford that. In my experience, I think oftentimes it's just prioritizing some things and saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to hire this coach for 30, 60 days, but my goal is not to become dependent on that coach, but instead for that coach to teach me so I can continue to do this on my own. And I think if you go into it from that perspective and you spend, some money learning in the beginning, the fundamentals, that education is going to last a lifetime. And that's how I think most people should go into personal training, with the idea is I need to learn from this person everything I can for the next 2 to 3 months. And then I'm going on my own.
Oh, that is powerful. That is powerful. That is so awesome. I really love that. Yeah. Having the mindset that you're going to learn for yourself. And I think, again, once you learn those skills as well as in terms of lifting properly, properly, I'm sure, the same concept applies. You learn how to do things properly in one part of your life, you'll do the same. You'll get a coach in another part of your life, and with the mindset that I'm taking these skills with me to help me improve the rest of my life. That is amazing. The second thing I wanted to ask you about was gut health. So you did mention that gut health plays a role in weight loss. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why do you think people really need to focus on their gut health to help them lose weight? And what are some of the things they can do to help, themselves improve their own gut health?
Yeah. So it is said that 80% of your health is in your gut. And, some people refer to it as the second brain. I recently heard someone say that the heart was the third brain. I had never heard that before. I thought that was so interesting. And so, I think when you look into gut health, every single industry has, when there's an issue, there's an industry that's created around it. And oftentimes those industries are a little corrupt because they're all about the money and not necessarily, people's well-being. And I say that because, the supplement industry can be very gimmicky, and they have all these claims, and they're not, these claims aren't looked at by the FDA. And so people can say whatever they want to say around these things. The thing I know works best when it comes to gut health. Once again, like you said before, the easy things generally sound too easy to be true. And you're like, oh, I don't know about that. Oh, there's another component or something else that I should be buying. But the number one thing for gut health really, really, really is number one, dialing your nutrition. And that's the thing that's going to allow your gut to do what it's meant to do. The body's a machine. The body can heal itself, but it needs proper nutrients. You need the right macro balance and you need the right micro balance, right? And so when those two things are going well and you are systematically eating every 4 hours, small portions, keeping that cadence so that you're never overly hungry, when you're minimizing processed foods, when you are staying away from foods that mimic all these things that create hormonal dysfunctions like the soy and things of that nature. And so you get healthy metabolically. That is the number one thing that cures your gut. Then it's hydration. I think we're all chronically dehydrated. We don't drink enough water. All liquids hydrate, but specifically water. And that becomes very specific per person, right? Everyone has a different need. So I think those two things, your micro, your macro balance, and then your hydration. And then as we age, our digestive enzymes start to wear off, right? They don't work as efficiently as they used to. Hence the reason I'm on this boat. If I eat past a certain time, food is kind of heavy and you wonder why. And so I am of the mindset that, I don't know if you ever heard me say this, Doc, when you were on our program. This is a thing I learned from my grandfather, who is a cardiologist and a former Mr. America. He died at 98 years old. He was when he passed away, and he stopped going to the gym when he was 95. And my grandfather had this amazing saying, and he would say, you want to eat like a king, you want to have lunch like a prince, and you want to have dinner like a peasant. And it was interesting. It was that simple, right? And so I was always like, Grandpa, why? And he gave me this explanation, and he said, when you first wake up in the morning, he said, your reproductive hormones and your digestive enzymes are efficient. They're very efficient because you've been depriving yourself. You've been fasting for however long you've been eating. So your absorption rates will be better and your digestion will be better earlier in the day. As the day transpires, what actually happens is your body starts a natural shutdown process. So by the time the sun goes down and melatonin rises, you can go to bed for the next 7 to 8 hours. So the last thing you want to do is compete an insulin spike with melatonin, because your body's always going to prefer sleep over digestion. So what ends up happening is your digestive enzymes aren't working well, aren't as efficient as they are earlier in the day. And then you're putting yourself to sleep. Your body's going to store that for energy and not going to absorb it as well as it can. So that stayed with me forever. And so in order to get healthy in your gut, it's the right macro, micro balance, the right hydration, and then nutrient timing. If we can do that, we're going to get super healthy in our gut, and our body's going to do what it's meant to do, which is to work efficiently.
Holy cow. Like, that is so powerful. And I have so many thoughts about everything that you said. But the first thing I'm going to say is, yes, you did tell me that statement, and I didn't know where it came from. I'm like so impressed with your grandpa. It came from your grandpa, because I do tell my patients, I'm like, eat breakfast like a queen, lunch. But I didn't get the JT. You need to talk to more physicians, because the truth is, I didn't learn this stuff in medical school. Like, a lot of the tips I'm using to help my patients are things that I learned from you. And even though my background is in kinesiology, I did a little bit of nutrition, but like, it's not to this level. So I really think we need to introduce you to more of the physician community so that you can help us guide our patients properly. But yeah, it's so powerful. Like, you're right, eating eating more in the morning, it just gives you more, at least for myself, I found it also gave me more energy throughout the day rather than my usual habit, and many physicians' usual habit. We think that if I eat too much, I'm going to be sleepy, but we're eating the wrong foods. We eat, most of us, like high carb, like a muffin and a coffee on the run while we're running, and that's our breakfast. And then at the end of the day, we pick up because we didn't eat all day. So even on my journey with you, it was so fascinating in so many parts of my life, just to see like why, like you'd ask me if I miss my snacks, why can't you take a break to have a snack? And I'm like, yeah, why can't I take a break to have a snack? It's just, and it's okay. Like I'm allowed to do that. Like I'm an independent adult, but it's just that we have these habits we don't think about that are not good for our health. Because, working for like 6 hours without eating and like not taking a break, it's not good for you mentally. You end up slowing down your performance. So yeah, that is so powerful. I have too many questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to sneak in one more question and then I have to have you back. One thing you say that was powerful is muscles are made in the kitchen. What do you mean by that? Because I have my assumption, but I realized don't assume anything with JT. Like, it's like you ask one question and it's like opening a gift. Like you give me so much information. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I want to add two things. You mentioned something that's super important, and it's something that I tell our members all the time. And it's question everything you do and see if the thing that you do on a daily basis still works for you. And I say that because we are very automatic. We have routines and we just get up and do them, but we never really question, is this serving me anymore? Is this idea serving me anymore? Is this diet serving me anymore? And so on and so forth. I got reminded of that through a book called I think it's called, oh man, I might butcher the name, but it's Essentialist, I believe. And it talks about just really looking at the essential things that make a difference in our lives. And so after I read that book, I started to question everything, literally everything. The way I get ready in the morning, does this work? How does it, and so I started kind of taking inventory of that. And I realized that there were a lot of things that I was doing that I wasn't even asking myself the question, is that still working for me? So I think that's important. Muscle is put on in the kitchen, not at the gym. When you go into the gym and you work out, you're breaking down muscle fibers, right? Your body goes into what we call it goes into catabolic mode, breakdown mode. The act of eating is anabolic. So we want to pair the breaking the fibers at the gym, which sounds morbid, but it's what happens, right? And then being able to recover. And we do that in a bunch of different ways. Sleep is fundamental. Sleep is one of the things that most people are lacking. We need to sleep at least 7 to 8 hours so that we're minimizing the cortisol spikes, cortisol being that stress response hormone. And then of course, when we are sleeping well and we're giving our nervous system enough time to rest in between workouts, because going to the gym is positive stress, but it's still stress on the body. So we need to be able to have times of activity. So we go to the gym and then we need rest and we need nutrition. And that's when the body actually grows. Muscle actually grows when we're feeding it, when we're bringing the right nutrients, when we're sleeping well. And in that recovery process is where we actually build muscles, and those fibers that we're breaking are recovering and they're coming back stronger. So that's where the whole concept of, you put muscle on in the kitchen, not at the gym.
I love it. And thank you for taking the time to explain that. I had my assumption and the assumption was not necessarily right. I'm really glad I asked you that question. That is so powerful. So for our audience who wants to learn more about you, they want to hear more about what you have to say, and they want to work with you, where can they find you and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. So we are currently, obviously we're right here around the corner from 2025. So we're offering a free strategy kickoff call for 2025, which is covering some of the 3 principles that I talked about, but more in depth. That's a value call. That's literally, hey, we're handing you this. And if you go to coachjttapias.com, I have a ton of things on social media, but instead of going to one of the other coaches, I would love to speak to your audience directly. And that's my direct link, coachjttapias.com. And that puts you right in touch with me and it brings you into my little world.
That is awesome. We'll make sure that we put the link to your website right below so that people can talk to you, because now they've gotten to know you. They've gotten to know a little bit of your philosophy. And in terms of results, I lost 30 pounds, I think, in like 4-ish months, like even less than 4-ish months. And I've managed to keep most of the weight off. So yeah, spectacular guys. If you are looking to invest in yourself, to improve your health and to lose weight, and even just to improve your mindset and improve, the way you approach certain aspects of your life, I would 110% recommend that you work with JT. So thank you again for agreeing to talk with us. And I will definitely have you back. I have too many questions that I want to ask.
Doc, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I don't know if you saw my smile ear to ear, because I just saw your before and after pictures, like literally right before coming on this call. And I was like, wow. wow, it's one of those like transformational before and after. So congratulations. I commend you for your discipline and, as a physician, your desire to really expand and educate your audience. So great job.
Thank you. And thank you. I would not have been able to do it without your help because I was trying for 2 years and it didn't work.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.